roll out the red carpet and turn up the volume. Get ready to have your mind blown in today's blockbuster podcast. If your screenplay's just gathering dust, buckle up. You're about to meet a trailblazer in screenplay marketing. This maestro of the movie script not only pens his own tales, but also rallies an army of fans, reels in the financiers, and takes the director's seat. Brace yourself as he pulls back the curtain on a groundbreaking approach to pitch your script that'll send shockwaves through Hollywood. Feast your eyes first on his breakout trailer, The Pineville Heist, and hold on to your seats because we're about to dive into the action-packed world of the one and only writer, director, and screenplay savant, Lee Chambers.
Drugs are permeating Pineville. What's the biggest threat to kids today?
Masturbation.
Office. 1018. Got a report of a white van missing.
Sheriff, can I speak to you for a sec? Bank's been hit.
What'd they get away with?
4, maybe 5 million. We'll never guess what happened. Someone robbed a bank. Get out! If we find it, we should return it. Why? Because it belongs to the town. Looks like a hunting camp. Looks like they burned somebody.
I swear nobody saw us.
Inspector, the bank robbers. We gotta call someone.
Aaron's at the school. He has the money. You want to send someone over to get it?
This will get you in and out the main door. All the other doors will be chained. You need to go in your office and stay there. It's not safe.
The bank fugitives? They're here?
Aaron, run!
Hi, everybody.
Now, Lee has done something which I think is quite miraculous. He's been a long-term client of Extreme Screenwriting, and he has not only written and directed multiple films, but he's done it by building an audience first, which I think is just extraordinary. So, Lee, I'd like to start off today. I know you have some current projects, but I want to start off today talking about the Pineville Heist. Because when I first started working with you a while back, that project, you were telling me about how you were going out putting flyers, you were doing all kinds of different things. And I know you wrote the book. Tell us how you got that made.
Well, yeah, and it was an 8-year process to get from coming up with the idea and starting the script to actually getting to the point where we actually finished the movie and showed it to an audience. It took a long time. Nobody trusts you as a filmmaker. It's like the chicken and the egg thing. We can't give you money until you've directed a feature, and you can't direct a feature until you've proven you can do it. And how do you do that? So it's kind of difficult. If I go back a little bit before Pineville Heist, I actually went to the Cannes Film Festival, and I had more of a drama screenplay. It had a little bit of a sci-fi aspect to it, but it was more drama. And I went around the Marché de Film in Cannes and talked to distributors, and what are they buying, what are they selling? And when I talked about my project, everybody said, if you're a first-time director with a screenplay or a writer with a screenplay trying to get it made, it's got to be at the right budget level. So writing a $200 million sci-fi superhero movie is very unlikely that an unknown writer is going to get a chance to ever get that. They work with people they trust. So it has to be at the right budget level. And then they also said that it needs to be more of a genre film. Drama really needs to be cast with well-known actors that help drive sales, whereas action, horror, thriller, that kind of stuff, people just love being scared, and it doesn't matter if they haven't seen that actor before, if they enjoy the movie. So there's more of a global market for those kind of films. I literally went back. I remembered a story about when I was a kid in a sort of a summer camp. We were playing hide and seek, and I hid underneath a canoe, and nobody saw me, and I was worried that they were going to catch me. And so I wrote this story about this kid running around in the woods with hiding under a canoe, where he's there with some money from the bank robbery, where the local robbers have been stashed their money, and he takes the money back to his school, and then is then hunted down when they show up trying to find it. Developed from my desire to realize that I need to move into a different market. And what's interesting is that I, as a writer director, I was mostly doing more comedy stuff. And so when I was trying to get the film funded, everybody said, well, yeah, you're comedy, but how do we know that you can handle, tension and thriller? Nobody trusted me. And then now that I've made the Pineville Heist as a thriller, and it's been sold to 35 countries around the world. It's on Amazon Prime. Everybody says, well, when I try to do comedy, they say, yeah, but your feature film was thriller. How do we know you can do comedy? So you're always pigeonholed in this industry as to what you can and can't do. But trying to find the money for it was very difficult because nobody wants to give you an opportunity. I was sort of chasing my tail, trying to find the financing for the film. And then I was just looking on IMDb for who could be my character. I was sort of dreaming my movie. And one of the things that I believe in with goal setting is I got shirts made that said Pineville Heist on it, and I would be wearing them, and you're kind of faced constantly with this is my goal. My goal is to direct this movie. And people were always saying, hey, Lee, when are you going to do your movie? And nobody believes you until it actually happens. I had a couple producers that were interested in it, and then nothing happened, and they were chasing the money and nothing happened. And then eventually an option ran out on the project. And I said, I just got to make this movie no matter what. Whether I have $3,500 or $300,000 or whatever the hell it is, I need to do it. And so I set a date, June 2014. So 10 years ago is when I went to camera pretty much on that project. But I set a date in October, prior to the date of shooting. And I said, I'm going to do this. And then I would reach out to people, and I started raising money from people because it's not, I want to make a movie. It is, I am making a movie. You're either in or you're out. Do you want to invest 10 grand and do this, that, or whatever? Do you want to be in the movie? All of those questions were, this is my date, June 2nd. Are you going to be a part of it or not? And miraculously, serendipitously, things kind of fell into place. They say when you're doing your first feature like that, it should be 2 or 3 people in a room. I chose an entire high school and flew in a bunch of people from Australia, and it was crazy. It's amazing that we actually got the film finished.
Tell me, when you did the book, how did that contribute for you for building your audience and attracting the money to the project?
When we write screenplays, they're an unpublished document, right? They're a blueprint for the movie. They're read by producers, directors, actors, and various people who take that document and then go and make a movie. So when your writers are out there trying to themselves known or to try to tell their stories, and it's really difficult because especially producers, they don't want to touch it unless it's through an agent or you sign a release agreement, and writers are worried about being sued or people are not being sued, people stealing their stuff. When I was doing the Pineville Heist, I managed to get this actor who was in a couple of the Twilight movies and one of the X-Men movies. And when we were talking about the project, he was asking me about the town of Pineville. And he was basically, as an actor, he wants to kind of get in the head of, what's Pineville? What is this town like? The economics and what are the social climate? What's the social climate of the town? And I'm, oh, okay. So I was in Canada and he was in LA, and I wrote a couple pages of, Pineville is this, it's a mine, it's a working town, and it's got this, and it's got a gazebo in the middle of the town. And I was basically creating a world that doesn't exist, how I imagined it as a writer and a director. And I thought, this is like a book, right? And I thought, well, why don't I just spend the time, take my screenplay and then novelize it? Once you publish it, it's in the public domain, which means the book, the characters, the plot, the story, all of those things that are in the screenplay have some cover of protection from a copyright, because you now have an established date of when it was out. And I remember going to the American film market, meeting Rob Reiner, who was talking about making Stand By Me and stuff. And I remember all of the writers went up to Rob and was like, oh, can you look at my screenplay? And Rob's like, I can't touch it. Can't touch your stuff, right? Unless it comes through a lawyer. I don't want to get sued. And I said, oh, here, Rob, here's a copy of the Pineville Heist. It has a homage to Stand By Me in it. And he goes, oh, and he grabbed the book and he went, thanks. And he put it in his bag. And all these writers looked at me and said, what just happened? I go, well, because my book, you can buy my book at Barnes and Noble. Your script isn't published anywhere yet.
Wow. That's right.
So that process, I did some promotions on it, but I did this one promotion in Easter in 2012. So a couple years before we made the movie. Well, so far it's sold a total of about 46,000 copies. The book actually attracted my investors. So I have people who invested in the movie who didn't read the screenplay. They read the book. They fell in love with the characters and the story, and they went, this would be cool as a movie. Here's some money, go make the movie. And they became investors that way. And then I realized, as a writer, I don't want to, and I can see this, all these writers who are out there who they've got great stories and they spent all of this time crafting a screenplay to specific specs that are expected in the industry. And they, dialogue and plots, and they come up with all this stuff. And then they're pushing it, trying to find somebody to make it into a movie, whether it's $100,000 or $100 million, whatever it happens to be. It's basically nothing until it's actually made as a movie. And I realize if I'm creating a piece of intellectual property and I've got a story to tell, why can't there be a book version of it or a graphic novel or whatever? Why can't I share this story and build an audience prior to actually having the movie come out? And so I've got 3 different books on Amazon. And the great thing is that I do promotions on one and I get sales on the other. So, and people asking me, when is this going to be a movie? I'm like, I don't know. Did you just win the lottery because are you extremely wealthy? Can you please send me some money and I'll make the movie? Because, as a filmmaker, I should have been a painter, right? Because a painter, I could buy a couple of canvases and some paint and slap some paint on it. If I don't like it, I can paint over it and I can sit at home and make art. But I chose filmmaking where it's extremely expensive and it's a team sport. So as a writer, a lot of times it's a very solo kind of venture. Once your screenplay leaves your hands as a writer and it goes to somebody else, you now have a team of, whether, 20, 30, 40, 100 people who have to translate your words into pictures before you can actually even brag that you've done anything. I always tell writers, find a way to be a published screenwriter. Find a way that I think there's nothing better than a writer who writes and then sees what their words look like when they are translated. It's usually not exactly the way you want it to be, or the director or whatever, the team make different choices than you would, or they on set have to make different choices, or they change dialogue and all that kind of stuff to see how your words translate. And I kind of now, as a writer, I write as a visual writer where I'm imagining how this would translate. I try to make sure that it's very clear and concise.
And I love what you said about the book. In fact, that you could hand it to Rob Reiner. Yeah, he can take that because that's in the public domain. Because this building the audience, we've been going more and more in that direction in the industry. And now it's come to where it's like, that's almost the norm. Like, do you have a YouTube audience? Do you have a book audience? And even before this, producers did buy books, not because they necessarily loved them from their childhood or something, but because they had a built-in audience. So this is a really big way to do it. Now, you did it to raise money to be the director also, but it's also a good way for screenwriters, like you said, to have that a more visualized way, a published way to show it. And the fact that you can put it in someone's hand is amazing.
You go in and pitch an original idea, original story. It might be a great story, but what Hollywood is thinking and the bean counters are thinking is, this is an original idea, which means we have to build an audience. We have to start from scratch and educate people why they should spend their money to buy a cinema ticket or buy a Blu-ray or whatever. And so, but if it's something that already has an inherent audience some way. So the joke was, a writer goes in to see, Paramount executives and says, here, I've got an idea. Jello, the movie. And they go, we know it. Great. Everybody knows Jello. Let's make the movie. Right. And that's a, example, like Barbie. I mean, look what they're taking something which is everybody knows Barbie. And so now selling that is easy because there's already an audience of people who buy this stuff. If you're a writer, you don't have access to content which has got or intellectual property that already has a massive audience. So you're creating original ideas. It's really hard for them to fund at big budget levels. It's the new one that I have, which just came out last May, is a screenplay. And then I started the process of novelizing, and I thought, you know what? I don't really even want to be a book writer. Like, I like to be a screenwriter. I like screenwriting. So there's a first chapter, which is written like a novel. And then I go backwards and I go, here's you can imagine, here's the world if you were reading a book, but now we're going to present it as the screenplay itself. The logic for me was, you don't really see people releasing screenplays of unproduced movies. You go to Barnes and Noble and you see Tarantino with his Hateful Eight script and different things. You see other movies, the Coen brothers selling their screenplays from movies that already exist. And I thought, okay, I'm just going to release my screenplay.
Lee did something very, very original in the audience building area. And what he's done is he took his latest, it's called Conviction. Is that correct? Is that the whole title? Yeah. Conviction. And he put the screenplay on Amazon. And he is now #1 in, I believe it's 2 categories, screenplay. And what was the second category?
Urban fiction. I thought, well, if Tarantino can release his screenplay, why can't I do mine? And it's just not something that's normally done. Independent people don't do that. So I decided that's it. So I formatted it into the paperback so that it can read like a screenplay, formatted kind of like a screenplay. The Kindle, the ebook version, it's not really the best way to read it. But one of the things that I've been doing when I've been approaching investors or producers or people that I want to try to attract to the project is let them know that the book is hit #1 in a couple categories. We got to #4 in psychological thriller, but I couldn't get to the top because of John Grisham. So I let them know that it's already building an audience. Right now, it's closing in on 5,000 downloads, and 98% of those are ebooks. The rest are paperbacks. But I've had unlike my Pineville Heist book, I have not focused on selling the book to make money. Introduce it to a producer. It'll be like, hey, I've got this project. It's sold almost 5,000 copies. That is impressive right there. What? There's 5,000 people.
You're focusing solely on building the audience then. That's
building the
focus.
Audience.
And using that to sell it.
Yeah. Exactly. And then what I do is I say, hey, look, you can download it, on Amazon, whatever. And I'll say, look, I'll send you a signed book and I'll also send you the PDF. So you can have both. And I find a lot of producers like, oh, cool, a signed book from an author. I'll take it. So now that gives me this unique way of communicating with the producer. And so I mailed them a book and I send them the PDF, and now they have 3 different ways to read it. They can read it on as an ebook. They can read it the PDF, and they can read the paperback. So and then the great thing is as the book becomes more successful, 6 weeks later or 6 months later, you kind of reach out and you say, hey, by the way, we are now sold 10,000 copies. It's right. Like reminding them, hey, this thing has got something. Why don't you jump on board and be a part of this?
It's got some legs. Let me ask you something, though. I'm really curious here. I got to get an answer to this. And I know everyone's wondering, by doing it this way, by publishing that, and I know you're going to get screenwriters who's saying, I'm putting my idea out there. Anybody can steal it. So address that, if you will. And number 2, is this helping you get around the no unsolicited thing in Hollywood, where if you have it on Amazon, it's got a 5,000 or 10,000 audience? Does that help you get around that, where they say, yeah, I could just get it from Amazon like anybody. I can read it from Amazon. And that helps you get around that. So if you would address those two questions.
Okay. So writers are always worried about people stealing their stuff. If I'm going to write and I'm going to be so afraid that people are going to steal my stuff, why even bother? I mean, it's just going to sit on the shelf. If I'm afraid to show any one person this project, then because it might get passed around and someone might steal this thing, then nothing's ever going to get made. The benefit I have is that I've established copyright through the Copyright Office and stuff years prior. Then the book comes out. So now, hey, if somebody wants to steal it and go and do it, and if I have a good case for it, they might know when my book came out, but they might not know when I actually did the copyright on the actual first draft of the screenplay. So let's go to court. I mean, you know what I mean? So I don't know. You just can't be afraid to put yourself out there.
No unsolicited in the business. Does that help you get around it by doing it this way?
Some producers in the past, when I would say, I've got my screenplay, and they'd want me to sign a submission release agreement. And so they'd be like, yeah, we got to have this, or, do you have, put it through a lawyer or whatever. But now, exactly. It's like when I hit them with we're #1 in a couple categories. We've sold 5,000 copies. That piques their interest. And when they realize that because it's in the public domain, they can just grab it themselves anyway. I mean, there's no benefit to signing a release agreement, and who cares if a lawyer's involved, because they can just go and grab it off the shelf somewhere else or download it. It usually opens that door, and getting people reaching out to me now and asking me, how do I get this? So now I'm looking backwards at a script a couple scripts I did previously, where I'm like, okay, maybe I should do the same thing. Maybe I should novel them. And I can have a whole library of intellectual content content that can be accessed and used to make into movies.
Now, if anyone would like to read Conviction by Lee Chambers, #1 in its categories, I'm leaving the link in the description below. Now, I want to talk to you about some of your other projects. You have done Copenhagen Road, you've done The Devil Knows You're Dead, and you did Hell in a Handbasket. And I just watched the trailer for Wicked Plans, and I laughed my ass off. It was really good. Thank you. I need to laugh.
Hey, man, that'll be $43.50.
Keep change.
Look, here's the number when you want to ride back.
No ride back. One-way trip.
Senator Johnson, you will pay for your crime.
What are you supposed to be?
Go away. This is no place for kids.
You're crazy, mister. This is the best house on the street.
Yes, Senator Johnson's house. This is Senator Johnson's house, no?
We know him as Bob. He gives out full-size Snicker bars.
What is happening and who are you?
I'm a fairy princess. Vampire? Hulk.
Yes, I know you are a scary green monster and you are Dracula. But what are you doing here? You have to go away. I am on job.
What is your job?
I am suicide bomber.
Last year, I was a Marine, and I would have kicked your butt.
Whoa, hey, stop. Don't do that.
You're weird.
You're dead.
I'm not dead. Vampires are immortal.
What about
Talk to the hand. You're thinking of zombies.
Oh, my! Look! Are you little darlings? Bob, just look at them.
Amazing.
Scary. Mysterious. Precious little fairy. Where's your bag, young man?
My bag? Young man, I'm suicide bomber.
That's fantastic. I mean, the attention to detail is amazing.
Oh, no, this is the real thing. For the Republic of Amatejaya.
I sat on the Intelligence Committee for 25 years, and that looks just like the real thing.
Here you go, son. Enjoy.
You know, I think next year, honey, we'll go with the half-size ones.
Why would you scare me like that?
You're silly. Come on, let's get to Ambassador Clarkson's before they run out of candy apples.
Wait, so you do this every year in this country?
Every year. Next year, I want to be a suicide bomber.
Next year, I want to be a Thor. Yes. Most definitely Thor.
So tell me about these other projects you did, whichever one you want to focus on. I loved Wicked Plan.
That one's been in 103 festivals over the last 2 years, including Comic-Con, and we won like 20 Best Short Film Awards. It did really well.
And you won the
Yeah,
Las
it's been-
Vegas International Film Festival. You've had 68 nominations, 20 some wins. I mean,
It's the most successful short film I've ever done. Well, any film I've ever done in that regard. So it's did really well around the world. And when I started the festival run for that, I started thinking of the bigger world of it. And so I drafted up a half-hour comedy pilot series, which continues the story. And basically the Wicked Plans is about an extremist who comes over to America and shows up on a senator's doorway in Washington, D.C., ready to blow him up with a suicide vest, but realizes that
Funny, yeah.
he's Halloween and he's
But
there with
trick or treating, yeah.
and everyone thinks, the kids think it's funny and they think it's great costume, and then
Yeah, they
the
think he has a
senator
costume,
opens
yeah.
the door and he thinks it's fantastic, and by the end of it we realize that he's confused, and then he starts realizing that America and North American culture has got some cool stuff in it, and Halloween, wow, that's awesome.
Right.
And so it's a family movie about a suicide bomber, and we fall in love with him.
And you laugh
which
your
is-
ass off. It's so funny. It's so funny. Yeah, I love it.
So the expanded story is that he goes back to his apartment afterwards, and we realize there's two of his other friends there from this fake country of Ahmadiyya. They're confused why he's back, because why didn't he blow up? Each episode of the sitcom takes place during a holiday. So we've got them during Christmas and Valentine's Day and 4th of July, and they keep thinking they're planning something, but they're really bad at being terrorists. You're taking sort of a horrific negative part of the negatives of people's thoughts and the horrific things that sometimes people have, extremist views, and turning it around to understand that really we're all just people, and we just want to love, and we just want to enjoy life. And
if anybody out there is interested in that, I've also left Lee's information also in the description below. When you go to the theater, Lee, what do you see?
I go and see lots of different things. I really don't limit myself. Sometimes it's nice to go into a movie without seeing the trailer first, because I find trailers are just, okay, I just spent 2 minutes and I now know every plot point. People always say, as a filmmaker, how do I watch a movie? And I'm like, look, if the lights go out, what I'm presented on screen is riveting and believable and fantastic. I get sucked into that world. The whole experience, the visual and the sound, everything. I get sucked into the world where I don't notice it. Choose to go to the cinema to see that David Fincher movie on the big screen because that's where I want to witness it. And I pay more for that cinema experience than my Netflix account is for the entire month.
Yep.
But I still do it because that's how I like to watch movies, is in that kind of environment.
Okay, so we have the screenwriters out there. They don't have your ambition to be a director, but they just want to be a screenwriter. Tell me, what would be your best advice to them to break into the business?
Listen to all the advice you can and support. Like, you've been great over the years in terms of, I have a blinders on where I think I've got it down, and then you come along and go, hey, Lee, the motivation of this character doesn't work. I don't see why they would make that choice. Be willing to listen to all the advice, to constantly find ways to make your stuff better. Really go through your screenplays and make sure they're fine-tuned for mistakes and stuff like that. I mean, do everything you can to make sure the format, which should be really the easiest part of it, making sure format is down. And because a lot of times producers read only the first couple pages, and if they're not into it or they see mistakes, they're moving on.
Lee Chambers, I thank you for being with us today, and good luck with all your projects, and we will see you at the movies.